Welcome back to Fishing Without Bait. We're going to continue our conversation with Mike Dawson and Tim Vitullo. I don't know if the producer of the show remember this. We had Jim Donovan on.
Oh, yeah.
And he spoke a lot like in the vein that you two are right now. You ever met Jim?
I don't know him.
I did. They do those like Pittsburgh Plays concerts, and the first one they did was Tom Petty, and he and I were paired up in one of the bands that they created. And I had no idea who he was when I first met him, and then found out. And I was like, oh wow, yeah, you've done the thing.
Yeah, he does a lot of drum circles now. A lot of festivals, communities, bringing people together.
I think he just put out a new record too.
Oh, okay.
I think I just saw, or it will be, in the next week or two.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, how do you gain traction in your business? How do you gain it? People are always saying, well, what can I do? What do I do?
Yeah, you're the maestro there.
You just have to be consistent. I mean, what I've learned over the years, because I've worked in both sides of the industry, in the publicity side, the media side, and as the artist side, it's professionalism, it's respect and courtesy, it's relentless determination, and just belief. And then it usually works. It usually does. Of course, there's some luck, a lot of luck, and taking some chances. But yeah, I feel like it's usually the people who are just really professional and respectful and understand that there's more than just them involved in this whole process. The cream rises to the top in this industry, for sure.
So how do you not take rejection personally? A lot of people have a real hard time with that, guys.
I mean, for me, I've been on the other side having to say no to a lot of people.
Yeah.
So I understand it's hard. It's very hard to tell an artist no to their face. So I'm okay with it. And when I get a no, like we've been sending this out to different media outlets, I want to respond right away. Thank you. It's okay for you to say no. We'll get back to you on the next one. You don't have to like it. It's okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And Mike touched on, I mean, belief is really the thing. If you feel gratified by the creation of that art, that you made this thing and it was important to you to do it and you followed through and, put your heart into it and feel like you made the best product you can make, to some extent, it doesn't really matter what other people think. That was your expression, and if you feel that you achieved it, then mission accomplished, and the rest is gravy.
I like the way you're talking, because so many look for external validation rather than internal validation. Mm-hmm. So when did you two get to the point where the internal validation overrode the external validation?
It's always been my motivation. I can't really say
otherwise. That's good. It definitely helps, like being more established. Like certainly when you're like just getting going, and you can't get opportunities, and you're kind of toiling in your practice room or your house. It's hard, definitely, if you have those ambitions to not feel that way and to not measure that success. But certainly we've both been really fortunate to have great opportunities. And it builds a little bit of confidence that you feel like you do have things that are worth saying, and you feel like you have the means to express yourself in a way that's...
Well, this didn't happen by accident. The wheel just didn't spin and came up and said, ta-da. So it's action and effort. We always talk about, on this show, that it's action and effort, not wishing, hoping, and waiting for something to happen. It takes action and effort to do that. And it takes focus and choices. I'm covered with tattoos. They're not offensive. They all have a meaning. So I often say that I choose is the most important vocabulary word you have in your life. Not I wish, or maybe I might, I should. I choose. So you're telling me that you two chose to do this.
Yeah. It was just the stars aligned. We both were thinking the same thing at the same time, and it just took reminding each other, oh yeah, remember a year ago we talked about getting together and making some music? Let's actually do it. And we did it.
Yeah.
So what we like to talk about in this show is not only how you got here from there, the trip along the way is really the most important part. So in the 12-step world, there's this saying that other people have this saying that God doesn't close one door without opening in another. Well, in the 12-step world, we can say, yeah, but it can be hell in the hallway. So tell our audience about navigating the hallway.
You take this.
Yeah.
You've done more of the solo artist world. So
Yeah, it's like something I did recently this year, and this collaboration, this project certainly was, I made like a big creative shift in about probably like the last 18 months to really focus on instrumental music. So even with my regular band, have been doing predominantly instrumental material, and it's tough. And I know they would ask me, as the leader of the group, well, how do you think this is going to go? And being very honest, would say in the early going, especially, like, I have no idea. They could hate this. This could be, a Led Zeppelin for sure, and not go well. But it's to me, it's making that choice, making that commitment, and living with it. And if you do believe and you feel like you actively made that choice and you actively felt like this is something I want to do, being by yourself, doing things that are uncomfortable, doing, kind of putting yourself out there in that way, and working through the process, it gives you the courage to continue on and go through that, because you felt like you were, very actively made that choice. And I think with this too, making that choice to show up every day, I think that was like a really big thing. I think that's really common, like oh yeah, let's jam sometime, or oh yeah, it's great. And I think that happens a lot, but then, gigs come up and life comes up and gets in the way. But for us to like finally like, hey, let's do it. Come to my house and I'm going to put up some microphones and we're going to make some noise and we're just going to do it for 2 hours and let's see what happens. And being really honest about, okay, let's just get that far and let's do that bit and then we'll kind of go from there. It was really helpful.
How about you, Mike? Tell us about navigating the hallway, buddy.
My hallway's been interesting because I made a choice when I was 25 to take a career position in journalism, which immediately said I had to decide I'm not going to pursue my dream as being an artist. I have to now become a 9-to-5er. But I'm working in the music industry, and I got to be friends with my favorite drummers in the world when they were young. So I got to watch their careers just go from like the guy at William Patterson University to playing on David Bowie's last record, and he's still a buddy that I hang out with. So seeing their careers just go nuts, and I've kind of just been on this trajectory. It's been humbling. It's also been inspiring, and it's also been realistic. I made a decision. My path goes this way. His went that way. We're still we're peers, So for me, it's just this quest. Where am I going to go? When eventually is the universe going to be like, oh, now it makes sense. Now it's just kind of like going all over the place, which is cool. And this was the first step. Like, since I moved to Pittsburgh, I didn't want to just keep doing what I've always been doing. Let's do something weird. Let's just make sounds and see what happens. I can finally push myself as an artist. So I can play drums. I can play regular drums. I can play with bands. I can do that till I'm dead. But this I've never done before. So we'll see. Who knows? This is like a dark hallway that we're just slowly like creeping down. Who knows where it's going to go?
Isn't that exciting?
Of course.
Yeah. It takes courage to do that. It takes courage to make a career shift, Tim.
Oh yeah. Yeah, absolutely. There's no end to it. But I think that's to me, that unknown and that possibility, like, is a very like naturally optimistic person. That excites me. So yeah, I'm always curious to try to open that door to go down that way and see what's there.
Sometimes, and Edison said also, he was approached by an investigative reporter that had him back then trying to get a charge out of him. And this reporter said, Mr. Edison, how does it feel to have failed over 1,000 times with this filaments? And he looked at him and he says, I've never failed. I just found 1,000 things that didn't work. So it depends on your perspective. It depends on how you look at things. things.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the horse has two ends, I always say. A front end and the back end. And you know what? The horse doesn't move. Only you can move.
No, I like that. Yeah, and too, I mean, to that point as well. I mean, we're here, we finished a record, and like it's coming out, and we're really excited about what we did. But we did throw stuff out, you know, and there was definitely a learning process. It wasn't like this has been done on the shelf for a year. You know, it took us some time to figure out.
It was probably several months of just throwing stuff at the wall.
Yeah.
So tell us about your new project.
Yeah.
Well, where do we begin? The original idea was just get together and make sound, and then I think at the time, what was going on in space travel?
Oh yeah, that was.
Was it Bezos in space or something?
It was the they were sending something to the moon.
Oh yeah,
the rover.
Yeah. They were the whatever that was when they were sending the rover to the moon. And I've been kind of obsessed with humans' obsession with space travel my whole life. I think it's just silly and also amazing at the same time. So I don't know why, but we just started talking about space stuff, and I guess the sounds we were making just became space stuff. And then all of a sudden we had a group of sounds that sounded like a soundtrack to a movie about this failed rover.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what it became.
Yeah. Yeah. And it was kind of fun too. Like I remember walking my dog, and I texted him because it was kind of that like eureka moment, because we were looking for like, what's the concept? So this isn't just like a mishmash of things, to try to like have some kind of binding thread through it. And just thinking about that sort of like progress for the sake of progress mentality that we'd seen a lot. We were kind of laughing at some of the failures of these like ill-begotten kind of projects, you know, or tech, you know, advancements or what have you. That was kind of the antithesis of what we were doing. It was, no, we want to get somewhere. There's a soul behind what we're doing. There's a reason that we're making this art. And it really kind of informed and helped us kind of craft and arrange everything, or, you know, as little arranging as there really is.
Yeah, there wasn't much. I think everything that made the record started just with an improvisation that we found a couple nuggets. Like, what'd you just do there? Let's do that again and then take it somewhere.
Yeah. We wanted to have like a consistent start and end usually, or an idea of where it was maybe going to go throughout the course of it. Worked through that. And then put the record together, and had a lot of help from some friends to get it over the finish line and get a physical product here.
So how long did it take from conception to product?
I would probably 6
months,
6 to 8 months. Yeah, where we were like, okay, yeah, here's the record. It's done.
We kept trying to beat our best take. That was kind of the thing. Once we each week, I don't know if we actually talked about it, but my goal was to have 2 ideas each time we got together that we could then decide, do we want to continue exploring it? And then we recorded every single one of them. So everything that was on the record was one of those days of, let's try that thing. And that's the one that made the record. The last track on the record is the only one that's from an early session.
I think that was like the first time we got together.
It was one of the first times we ever got together, and that, whatever that was, that set the tone, and we tried to beat it for like 6 months.
Yeah.
And we can't beat it.
Yeah. and the for like the maybe non-musical people, so like you were asking about this in the performance, like I'm using a loop pedal, and what it does is it records what you're playing, and then once you tell it to stop listening, basically it just creates a cycle of that. And that was one of the things that I'd been doing in my solo sets. And that was a product of the pandemic. I think maybe we talked about that last time. You know, we were so limited on performance opportunities, and I had a lot of time at home to figure out how to use this device. And it kind of became like my makeshift band when I couldn't bring one with me. So I was really interested in that device, and I was using it, and I was trying to figure out how can I use this more creatively. And then by virtue of being a duo, it kind of became the third band member in a way to so it didn't sound so Spartan and so sparse. So what was tough about that is, like, you know, unlike us, we're living, breathing humans that respond to each other. The looper only knows what you've put into it. So trying to do these all as like live one take things, and some of these tracks are, you know, in excess of 15 minutes long. So basically just trying to not make like fall into a tailspin with it and make a huge mistake in that 15-minute period was tricky. So that was kind of learning the techniques and the technology and finding the sound. And then even if we did, just by virtue of doing that, if it did kind of crash and burn, how do we resurrect it and save the take and save the piece, out of that?
Our producer referred to that as adding some atmospheric ambiance to the music.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is what I've been obsessed with forever. Brian Eno's records are the records I put on when I just want to listen to music. There's no drums on it. So I've always had this in the back of my mind. How can I make Brian Eno music with drums on it? Not have it be like a trip hop or a lo-fi like electronic. I don't want to have it be beats. I want to be like the sound that inspires all the ambience. So that was my original idea of and I did that for years with like effects, and I had loopers and all that where I would just create my own world and improvise over it. It's so much better to do it with another person.
Yeah. Well, it's like, it was really nice. You sent me, and I got really into the Robert Fripp records that Brian Eno worked on with him. And he kind of created the looper with like reel-to-reel machines back in the 70s. It was a really kind of archaic way, but there were a lot of limitations with it. And listening to that stuff, that was really like another big jumping off point for us of like, oh, here's how he's kind of thinking about composition and thinking about improvisation using this kind of technology component with it in a really creative and unique way. And much like Mike, had kind of gotten into a rut of like, these are the gigs I get called for. These are the opportunities that people kind of think of me in. I'd really like to kind of zag to the left and kind of subvert some of that expectation.
You're talking about Robert Fripp from King Crimson?
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he created this system called Frippertronics, where it was basically two tape machines that fed into each other. So he would play, the one tape machine would record it, and then it would go to the playback head of the other, and it would just kind of create this cycle of overlaid sounds. They're really cool records, and it's been fun to how do we kind of embrace some of that ingenuity?
Well, we can explore all these different things, but we still have to put gas in our car. So how are you two putting gas in your car?
Yeah,
Jobs.
Yeah.
I tell all my students who are like, should I go to school for music or should I be a professional musician? I was like, I have one question for you. Can you do anything else for money and be happy? If the answer is yes, do it. And keep the art the art. And that's been my motto my entire life. I haven't needed to play drums to feed myself. That's been the only way that I can make it work, having a job.
Yeah, I mean, we're similar. Yeah, I work as an engineer during the day. And if anything, I do so much technical stuff in that role, it makes me more excited whenever I punch out at the end of the day to really do something creative and like you said earlier, color outside the lines.
Yes. So do you think for some musicians it actually becomes a job?
Yes. It can be very soul-sucking very quick.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
I mean, I only gig on the weekends, but if we get into a string of like 8 weeks in a row, by the end of it, I'm like, I don't enjoy this at all. Like there's like zero enjoyment for me to do these gigs, these like party gigs or whatever. Yeah. That's when I need a break. I'm like, I need to take a day off. Can someone sub for me or whatever? So yeah, it can definitely be a job.
Yeah. Well, and I think too, like as people learn as they get into it and yeah, you know very well, my joke to people is they're like, oh, you're in a band. And I say, no, I run a small business and sometimes get to play guitar. It's all the other things, and that's the thing that maybe some people don't realize up front and they feel kind of get those kind of sour feelings about it is, yeah, you have to be an accountant and a marketing person and a salesperson and, all these different roles you have to fill to kind of actually make your art make money for you. It's really hard, and it's not for the faint of heart.
Well, when it becomes I always tell people, when it becomes a job, then it's time to re-examine. Please follow our friends on Instagram for tickets availability at their next performance, their launch at the Club Cafe on November the 8th. And For a free prescription, which you can cash anywhere, it's fruits, nuts, and vegetables. And unplug that television and take up fishing. And for a truly mindful experience, let's all fish without bait. Do a kindness for yourself and do a kindness for another. Forgive yourself and forgive another. If we're all not God's children, none of us are. Till all are free, none are free. Namaste.
please check out our website at fishingwithoutbait.com, where you can listen to the show, comment on our discussions, and find out where you can subscribe to our podcast. If you're interested in flying the colors of Fishing Without Bait, click the shop icon on our website. We have clothing, mugs, cell phone cases, and so much more. Show the world that you fish without bait. This show is a member of the Sorgatron Media Podcast Network. Find out more at sorgatronmedia.com.